I don't know what it is recently. I don't know what it is, what's going on recently with all these people like just hating on Michael Jordan. I don't get it. I guess but then again, I guess I do because sports media loves to just talk about these athletes, and it creates ratings and talk and controversy and increases circulation with magazines and who's the greatest, who's better, who's gonna be better in 5 years, whose legacy is gonna be better. I mean, all this shit is opinion based, generally, But when you start saying things about Jordan and whether or not he's overrated, I think if somebody says something like Michael Jordan was a god, okay, then that's overrating him. Okay, Michael Jordan was perfect. No, he wasn't perfect. And for the record, this video is addressed to Isaiah, the same guy who the Truth ethers constantly in videos, by the way. Shout out to the Truth 683. He said Jordan jockers aren't capable of saying anything negative about Michael, right? And I've been called a Jordan jocker. Had to ban some guy who called me a Jordan jocker. Spamming my fucking Akeem Olajuwon videos, right? But I'm the same guy, a supposed Jordan jocker. I'm the same guy who did a video saying how Michael Jordan is a sellout to the black community. Then I had people who I guess were Jordan jockers calling me a Jordan hater. I guess because they see that picture of the young kid in the on my avatar, or my thumbnail, on my channel, assume I'm some little kid. Even though you would think with the butterfly collar and the sweater, that outdated look, from the early 80s, they would think that's an old picture. But anyway, do I have anything else negative to say about Jordan? I didn't like the three-peat Jordan as much as the prime and the earlier three-peat Jordan version, because he was slowly transitioning into a volume score, which I don't particularly like. The last year he played with Chicago, he shot about 46% from the field, which by his standards is rather poor. But in today's NBA, that would be considered pretty good. But he shot only 46% from the field. His mid-range game was starting to decline. I think his mid-range, from mid-range, he shot 43% that season, which is average or a little bit above average. But the two earlier seasons, he shot about 48 and 49% from mid-range, which is exceptional. Like I said, I think he's the greatest mid-range shooter I've ever seen in my life. But anyway, that's the negatives I have to say about Michael. I'm not a Jordan jocker. I just think I like to spit truth. Now, let's address something with LeBron. Some differences between him and Michael. Even in LeBron's era, his own era, which is post-Jordan, because Jordan retired in 2003, and LeBron came in the very next season in 2003. Even in his own era, LeBron has never been as dominant as Michael. He's never. He's never really been considered consistently head and shoulders above everybody else. From 2003 to about 2007, the consensus was Kobe was better than LeBron. Remember that? They asked people who the best player in the league was. They said Kobe Bryant. Then after that, maybe LeBron. Hell, for a stretch, some people will tell you it was Kobe, Wade, and then LeBron. When Wade went off in the finals, they would say, hey, man, it might be Kobe, Wade, then LeBron. Because LeBron ain't got that ring. Remember that? Then, from 2007 to about 2010, when some people said, well, LeBron has shifted ahead of Kobe, many people, especially after the Kobe two-peats with the Lakers, they said, well, no, I still think Kobe's better. Legacy-wise and even concurrently. They still thought that he was better. Then after Kobe started falling off after the injuries, from 2010 to 2014, when LeBron went to Miami, ran and bailed, ship to Miami, when LeBron was in his prime, many people stated that, and there's a lot of merit to this, that LeBron quitting on his team, which he did. People could try to sugarcoat it all they want to, but he still bailed on his team. Now, I have said that I kind of understand why LeBron did it now, in hindsight. But it is, in some people's eyes, a stain on his legacy. It's his personal little Watergate. There's some truth to that. Okay. Those 4 years he was Miami was probably his prime. When he came back, since 2014, LeBron has been slowly declining each season. Since then, Kevin Durant's won an MVP award. Stephen Curry's won 2 MVP awards. Last year, everybody was saying that Stephen Curry was the best player in the league. He had overtaken LeBron. Remember that? Curry mania? When Michael Jordan was in his prime, which is essentially his entire Chicago Bulls tenure, he was considered, especially the first 9 years, head and shoulders above everyone in a league that was far more dominating, with more talent. It was Michael Jordan and then everybody else. 1984, send us another video. Bob Cousy, a guy who at the time had been watching the NBA since 1950. So that's 35 years at the time of watching NBA players, said Larry Joe Bird was the best player he had ever seen. In 3 years, he was saying Michael Jordan was the best player he had ever seen. Even the diminished three-peat version of Jordan, the second three-peat, right? Even he was better. He was a little bit closer to the field, but generally speaking, the only guy some people said might take over for Michael was Shaq. But generally speaking, he was still considered the best player in the league by at least 85% of fans, as opposed to maybe 95% of fans before. He dominated the NBA in a way that the only other guy I can think of is Wilt Chamberlain. Now, Isaiah, you said something about Magic Johnson was the only guy to come into the NBA and dominate. Magic's the exception to the rule. What about Larry Bird? I believe my numbers may be a slight tick off, but the 78-79 season, before Bird was officially drafted by officially before he started with the NBA, I think he was drafted in 78, his rights, but he didn't play for him until 79-80 or something like that. But anyway, 78-79, the Celtics were 28-56? And I think they made a 33-game turnaround when Bird joined them. They went from 28 to 61 wins and made it all the way, I believe, to the Eastern Conference Finals, I believe it was. I believe it was the Eastern Conference Finals where they lost to the Sixers. Now, granted, also, because I like to give credit, they also acquired Robert Parrish in a trade, I believe. No, was it that year or was it the next season? No, I think it was next season. My memory's a little bit short on that one, but I do know that Larry Bird, I believe it was next year when they got Parrish and McHale. But anyway, still, Bird flipped that team 33 wins. So it's not just Magic Johnson. And by the way, while we're at it, Michael Jordan, before he joined the Bulls, they won 27 games, 83-84 season. 84-85 season, they won 38 games. That doesn't sound like much, but it's very rare for a perimeter player by himself to improve a team by that many games. It's very rare. And don't nitpick and choose a perimeter player without mentioning that, we also acquired this guy, and we also made this change, and we also improved this, our bench this way with 3 players. Don't do that. Michael Jordan improved the Bulls by 11 games. Very rarely do a perimeter player have that type of effect on an overall team. Now, you said something about when LeBron first joined the Cavaliers that he had Eric Snow as his point guard, and you tried to call Eric Snow a bum. Now, we all know Eric Snow was not the best scorer. He wasn't. But what he was an outstanding defensive player and a very high IQ basketball player. Matter of fact, Kobe Bryant, when asked who was the toughest guy to ever guard him, he didn't say Ron Artest. To my surprise, he didn't even say Bruce Bowen. He said Eric Snow. Eric Snow used to hound him and cause him problems like no other guy because of his low center of gravity. But you called him like a bum. You derided him. Now, you mentioned that Michael Jordan and the Bulls didn't win until the Celtics and Pistons got old. But you failed to also state, obviously, that LeBron didn't start winning until the 2000 versions of the Celtics and Pistons got old. And while we're at it, let me also say this. The Celtics really never were the Bulls' direct nemesis. They were the Pistons' nemesis. You see, the Celtics were to the 80s Pistons what the Pistons were to the Bulls. And you can make the same argument that the Pistons didn't start winning until the Celtics got old. If you want to diminish the value of championships, well, shit, the Pistons could never beat the fucking Celtics. Heard this one, Isaiah? And now there's a steal by Bird. This is up to DJ to lay it in. Oh my, what a play by Bird. And he stole the inbound pass and give it to Bird. Oh my, this place is going crazy. Remember that call? When Zeke boneheadedly threw a lazy pass to Bill Laimbeer, which was stolen by Larry Bird. You remember that? The Celtics were a thorn in the Pistons' side. Wasn't until Bird got injured and hurt, and the Celtics got beat up and old. Kevin McHale's foot was broken and never the same after the 87 playoffs. Robert Parrish finally started showing his age. Wasn't until they got old and Red Auerbach and the Boston organization just remained loyal to these guys, which was a mistake. And the Len Bias draft, went up in flames when that cocaine went up Len Bias's nose and stopped his heart. When all of this happened, that's when the Pistons started winning. And let me address this one more time about these Pistons getting old all of a sudden when the Bulls started winning. Okay? They were two-time defending NBA champions going into the 90-91 season. It's not like, okay, they had won a championship 3 years ago or 2 years ago and they've been steadily declining. No, they had just came off a 59-win season where they defeated the Portland Trailblazers 4-1 and won their second championship. Dennis Rodman had three-peat carved in the back of his fucking head. The Pistons was talking about three-peating. But because they had injuries that year, and the Bulls, were luckily stayed healthy, everyone said, oh, the Bulls only won because of injuries. The Bulls only won because of injuries. That was the excuse that Jordan Hayes used to make back then. The Bulls only won because the Pistons got injured. But when the Bulls repeated, and then three-peated, something the Pistons could never do, the new argument became, oh, the Pistons got old. How the fuck did they just get old? When they were favored to win a title at the beginning of the 90-91 season. I'm tired of that fucking argument. I'm tired of it. Zeke was 30 years old. in 1991 season. Started at the season 29 years old, was 30 years old at the end of the season. Joe Dumas, I think, was about 28 years old. Okay? Bill Laimbeer was 34. Okay, he was getting a little bit long in the tooth. Okay, I'll admit that. Okay? Dennis Rodman was, what? 29, 30 years old? Yeah, about 29, 30 years old. Zeke about 30 years old. Okay? Do you want to know the ages of the Chicago Bulls that last season when they won 62 games? You want to know their ages? Jordan was 35 years old. Pippen was 33 years old. Rodman was 37 years old. So why don't the Bulls get the same argument, the same, outstanding achievement for being probably the oldest damn championship team in NBA history? Ron Harper was 34. We were fucking dinosaurs, and we were able to hold on to win a title. But the Pistons get a pass for being about 30 years old, for being old? Get the fuck out of here, man. And by the way, that same Pistons team that dispatched the Portland Trailblazers in 5 games, the Bulls went 7 games with them. That 2007 Cavaliers team was not pathetic. They were not pathetic, okay? They had talent. Julius Randle was on the team. Donnell Marshall was on the team. What's his name? What was his name? David Wesley was on the team. There was talent on the team. What it was, and I think Mo Williams was on the team. It wasn't that team had other superstars, but what it had was a solid supporting cast of characters around LeBron. They went 50-32 in the regular season. They overachieved a little bit in the playoffs, but also it has to be noted that particular season, 2006-2007, you can make the argument, I guess I'm making the argument here as well, that the Eastern Conference was very weak that year. This was before the creation of the Big Three in Boston. You had the Pistons. They were there. But other than them, who else was there in the East? That Nets team had been pretty much, broken up with Jason Kidd and them. Who else was there? Maybe the Pacers. They're really no real dominant team. So really, when you think about it, it's not that big of an accomplishment that LeBron made it to the finals that year. It really isn't. I mean, he had a great game. It was a bit of an upset that they beat the Pistons, but it's not like he trudged mountaintops, beating just all these invincible foes as lore has become over time. I mean, he had a great game 5 when he scored 48 points, in that game. It was one of the great games in playoff history. I'll give him that. But it wasn't like he was like beasting against a monster conference. All the talent was in the fucking West. By the way, Jordan was 28 when he won his first title, not 30. Isaiah. He was 30 when he won his last title, the last three-peat against the Phoenix Suns. Now, this is what really, I think, killed your argument here. You said 2011, you admitted that his finals performance was horrible, but you give him a pass. It was historically horrible, by the way, scoring nearly 10 points fewer that finals against the Mavericks than he did in the regular season. But you give the excuse for that performance, the pressures of the finals, and his age. Look, you could get away with that the first time against the Spurs when he was essentially the only All-Star on that team. Okay, when he was 20, what was he? 22. He was 22 years old. He wasn't 21, by the way. He was 22. I know it's like the shave age off the edge of your argument, but I know how old he was. He was 22 when he went to the finals against the Spurs. But look, he was 20. You say, oh, well, he was 26 years old. What the fuck? Dude, he was playing with 2 other All-Stars. The point was that the pressure on him wasn't there anymore. Okay? He was La Passive, La Barney Fife, La Blewett, La Choke. That's when all of these derisive names came because he went on the fucking team. You don't go to a fucking team saying we're not going to win, but not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5. All that shit he was doing. And then go to the NBA Finals and play like absolute shit. And you got talent around you, which was the main argument you had with Cleveland, that you didn't have any fucking talent. Now you got all this fucking talent around you, and you fucking choke. No, he don't get a pass. And his age, get out of here. Like you mentioned, Wade was 24 when he led the team single-handedly back from a 2-0, almost 3-0 deficit. I think the Heat were down 13 points in the third quarter in Game 3. And he said, fuck this. I'm leading this team back to the fucking promised land. And he did that. And he was 24 years old. And it wasn't just him. You mentioned like it was just those guys. Bird was 24 when he won his first title in 1981. George Michael, I think, was 25. 24, 25 years old when his Minneapolis Lakers won their first title. The first of 5. Okay, Bill Russell was 23 when he led the Boston Celtics to the first of their 11 NBA championships. Kareem was 24 when he won his first title in 1971. 24 years old. And Tim Duncan was 23 to 24 years old. I think he was 23 when the Spurs won their first title. Now, I know he had help, but LeBron had help. So that's not an excuse. Don't use the help excuse for this one, but don't use it for LeBron. Also, you give LeBron a pass for coming up short in the playoffs before age, 27, I guess, when he won his first title. You give him a pass for that, but not Jordan. Not Jordan. Jordan doesn't get a pass. Amazing. By the way, I think it took LeBron 9 years to win a championship as opposed to Jordan 7. But people like to make it seem like Jordan had all this futility and lack of success in the playoffs. But it took LeBron longer to win a title than it did Jordan. Jordan doesn't get an excuse for losing it to the championship Celtics or the Milwaukee Bucks, the team I think is the greatest team in the 80s not to go to the NBA Finals. He doesn't get a pass for that. He doesn't get a pass for progressively leading his his Bulls teams further and performing better against the Pistons year after year. He don't get a pass for that with the Jordan haters. Oh, he was 1-9 before Scottie Pippen. Motherfucker, he was playing against the Bucks and the Celtics. Yeah. Come on. He doesn't get a pass from you guys. And also, LeBron kind of has a little bit of an edge in certain areas than Jordan because he came to the league at age 18 as opposed to Jordan's 21. I'll say this and I'll admit this. LeBron James was probably a better high school player than Michael Jordan was. Okay? I'll admit that. But, because Jordan, even in college, he was projected to be something like a Jerry Stackhouse type player, but not the player that he became. So LeBron has a bit of an edge when it comes to numbers that will be accumulated throughout his career because he has a head start. So that's why I look at per game averages with these two. And this is what really kills me with you. You said that the Bulls had a better supporting cast with the Bulls, and you try to prove that argument by saying that, well, when Jordan left, and you were so factually incorrect with some of this shit. You said when Jordan left, they had the same record, and when they came back, they won 60 games, and the next year they won 72. That's so incorrect. First of all, if you want to make the argument, that's a ridiculous argument. The reason why the Bulls, well, I did a video about this, by the way, so I'm not going to go into detail like I did. You can just watch the video, and I'll fucking put a link in the description as to why the Bulls only dropped 2 wins from 57 and 93 to 55 and 94. But generally speaking, it's because the Bulls had an outstanding supporting cast. Scottie Pippen had an outstanding NBA season. The Bulls' defensive schemes and the offensive strategies were fucking brilliant. Okay, that was the season to me that cemented Phil Jackson as an all-time great coach right then and there, because that was so unexpected. But also, what has to be, and like I said before, many of those wins that we had, we could have easily lost those games. We could have, instead of going at 55 and 27, we could have gone 40 and 42. We could have easily gone that way. But we won a lot of fucking ball games between 1 and 5 and 6 points. A lot of them. But we recognized that our offense was stymied. Pete Myers was no Michael Jordan. And we slowed down the pace of our games. I can't remember the numbers off my head totally, but I think our points per game went down something like 6 points per game, which is tremendous. Don't sound like it, but it is. For one season to go from one to the next. That's an extreme scoring drop. Might have been more than that. I'm trying to go off memory. It might have been more than that, but I think it was 6 points. But anyway, another reason why we only dropped 2 games is because the nucleus of the championship Chicago Bulls, those players came in that very season, 93-94. Your Steve Kerrs, your Tony Kukoc, your Ron Hoppers, your Luke Longleys, your Bill Winningtons. Those guys came in that particular season. Who were gone? John Paxson, who was on his last legs in 93, retired and kicked into the office. Okay, Bill Cartwright was on his last legs. All right, a lot of those guys. Trent Tucker was gone. All those guys who were old fossils that Jordan was carrying around, Jordan and Pippen and Horace Grant were carrying around in 93, and Jordan's phenomenal performance was the only thing that kept us, that helped us to win the three-peat when he scored 41 points per game, which is what superstars do in the finals. Those guys were gone. That's why we won 55 games. Also, what has to be mentioned is that 93-94 was the only year that Horace Grant was an all-star. That's why we won 55 games. When Horace Grant left to go to Orlando, the very next season, that's when because rebounding is very important. We lost Horace Grant's 14 points, whatever it is. We lost his 10 rebounds per game. We missed his 53 to 57% shooting from the field. That's why we dropped to 500. We were about 500 when Jordan came back. Jordan led us to a 13-4 record to finish at 47-35 to make the playoffs. Now, with LeBron, when he left Cleveland, they had won 61 games. The reason why they dropped to 19 wins is partly due to LeBron leaving the team. But you also have to remember that the head coach at the time, Mike Brown, had been fired, along with I think many of his supporting coaching staff had been fired, and many key players with the Cavaliers suffered injuries throughout the duration of this season. Many of them. Because not only did LeBron leave, but Zydrunas Ilgauskas, the guy who had been the center for that team since 95, I think, or 94, was gone. He left with LeBron. Then Mo Williams and all these other guys, Anderson Varejao, other players suffered severe injuries during this season. And that's why they dropped down so much. Now remember, also, when LeBron left Miami, the Heat were expected to just become a lottery team. They won 54 games that last year when they failed in the playoffs against the Spurs, 2014 NBA Finals. LeBron saw Wade, thought he was getting a little long in the tooth, then he dropped. He bailed on the team. The very next year, they did drop to 37 wins, but that was better than what people had anticipated. Partly that was due to the fact that Chris Bosh, I think it was the first year that he missed games due to the kidney ailment. Wade missed 20 games himself. Because at one point in time, Miami was like 500, or playing about a little over 500. And they were playing far beyond what people thought they were going to do. But you don't mention that, though, in your video. And, finally, I got to wrap this up because this is one of my longest videos ever. You say that if LeBron's able to beat the Warriors with the team they have, that'll be enough to cement him as GOAT. And I don't think so. And I'm going to end this video with this, okay? Because it doesn't negate the failures that he's had in the finals. And he's had a lot of failures. A lot of people like to shit on the teams that Jordan played in the finals. And let me say this. Michael Jordan played against the best Utah Jazz teams in their franchise history. A team that won 64 games in 97, 62 games in 98. They are by far the best Jazz teams in their franchise history. He played against the best Sonic/Thunder team of all time that won 64 games in 96. He played against by far the best Phoenix Suns team in their franchise history in 92-93. Probably the best team that he played in the finals. That team was loaded with talent. Loaded with talent. It took Michael Jordan playing on a team that was declining all around him. The first two Chicago Bulls teams were noted for their overall talent and high-scoring exploits at times, and their defensive toughness. This team, the 93 team, was just another good team. But Michael Jordan elevated that team. That's noted by the fact that Jordan, twice in that playoffs, if memory serves me correctly, scored 50 points. He scored 54 points in Game 4 against the New York Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals, Memorial Day game. And, of course, in the finals, he scored 55 points. Second best scoring mark in finals history. Only behind Elgin Baylor's 61 and tying Rick Barry's 55. Set against the Philadelphia Warriors, I believe, 1967 NBA Finals. 55 points. The thing about it is this, and this is what I'm going to end this video on. When Michael Jordan was on the highest stage, he performed the highest at his highest levels. I believe when you look at Jordan's 39 career 50-point games, 21 or 22 of them, my numbers are a little bit fuzzy, but those 39 50-point games he has in his career, 21, I believe, or 22, one or the other, come against top 10 defenses. When LeBron scores 50 or 60, they come against teams like the Bucks and the Bobcats. So you get my drift with that.